ever wondered why it is that we find ourselves in the daily situations and circumstances that we do? There are a number of answers to that question. One answer, however, is that God uses us to pray for the salvation of people around us, as well as bringing to Him in prayer circumstances and situations that we see around us. What an exciting thought, to be used by the Almighty Father on a daily basis. Is it possible the Lord would need to use us as agents here on earth? Well, yes, it is. We find ourselves in many different situations throughout our day. Just think about that. Reflect on your day today. How many people did you interact with? How many meetings were you in? How many instructions did you give out? How much advice did you share? And how many people did you actually help? All the above circumstances are necessary in our lives, but in terms of our internal life, how important are they? Worldly duties are important, but spiritual duties will earn us eternal rewards, which will last forever and ever and ever and ever. There's a story of a man who passed on from this world, and when he sat with the Lord, he was asked what he achieved in his life on earth. The man proudly told the Lord of all the business achievements and qualifications, as well as how many times he went to church, etc. And then the Lord replied to him, "You achieved all those things down there," and proceeded to point to an earth which was totally engulfed in flames. Now, not to say that the things we do while on earth are not important, but how will they compare to our eternal life? When we allow our worldly duties to engulf us, we become blind to the work of the Lord. Because our emotions are running high at some points, we lose sight of God's purpose on this earth, and we can only think about our own situations. The Lord asks us to pray for others in James. God will very often place it in our hearts to pray for a person's salvation. Because of His word, God is bound to do all things according to a prescribed pattern. Always bear in mind that if God places people into our minds, we are to pray for their salvation. If unsaved friends and loved ones are experiencing real difficulties, we shouldn't only pray for God to free them from their troubles, but rather to pray for their salvation and for God's will to be done in those circumstances. God will often allow the circumstances in order to bring people to salvation. This obviously doesn't apply to the ones that are already saved. We can now see how important it is for us to remain as mentally free as possible during our day, so that as the Lord asks us to pray for others or to intercede in a particular situation, we're ready and able. Interesting to note that our prayers stand before God as a memorial for all time. He gazes upon our prayers. That's so beautiful. It's a great privilege to be used by the Lord. One day we will sit with Him and He'll show us just how many souls came to know Him as a result of our prayers. We can be the hands and the eyes of the Lord through the course of our day. When you go out tomorrow, see the world through God's eyes and be led by His Spirit to pray for people who come across your path, as well as circumstances that you find yourself in. Did you ever consider praying for that beggar at the traffic light? If you don't pray for him, who will? Did you ever consider praying for God's will to be done in your next meeting instead of what you personally want? There are simple but effective tasks which make our walk with the Lord more practical and allow His will to be done on earth. You need to be part of this privileged people. So let's turn to Him and ask Him to help us more. Thanks for listening. May the Lord bless you all. Until next time.